So, to everybody that's joined us today, thank you and welcome. It's really, really nice to have you with us. I trust it's going to be an interesting session and certainly informative, given the fact that we've got a lot of information that we'll share as quickly as possible. I'm going to ask you to hold your questions right to the end, and we'll have a question and answer time, which we won't record, but it'll just literally be a matter of that anybody can ask questions. So, my name is Ken Annandale, and Penny Jones, my wife and partner, started Interest Safe about 14 years ago with the primary objective of assisting people like yourself to set up their own training departments if you're a corporate, or alternatively to set up your own training company. And if that's something that you would like to do, we'll be able to give you some advice and guidance. Now, first and foremost, I'm going to be running a PowerPoint presentation in the background, and I need you to just confirm that you can see this. Could somebody just confirm you can see the cover? You can do that audibly.
Yes, can see it.
Fantastic.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I've got Penny sitting on my left-hand side, and she will come across in a moment and she'll just talk a little bit. But the invitation went out saying, fast track your occupational health and safety training business. And I mentioned that we've been in this industry for over 14 years. If you have Natalie's number, that's great. Her number is 069 652 9696. That's 069 652 9696. Now, I always say to people at this stage, maybe you don't want to be taking notes. So what you can do is you just pick up your camera on your phone and take a photograph of the screen. Then you got her number. And the reason we're asking for that is that she's got a lot of information that she'd like to send to you and that we'd like to share with you as well. WhatsApp has become a wonderful medium to work with. It's so much easier, fewer clicks than, than emails. I say to everybody, even though I've got a law enforcement background, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. I don't have a legal background. I studied law for about a year, but other than that, I'm an amateur like you. And if ever you need legal advice, we are well connected with some excellent attorneys and advocates who specialize in the occupational health and safety legislation. So don't hesitate to call us then. Now, for everybody that's here today, I'm sure by now you would have received the prospectus. And this document is going to cover everything plus more that I'm going to be talking about in this presentation. This prospectus is terms and conditions, features and benefits, rates and dates and prices and things like that. It's a very, very important document to have. So if you haven't got it yet, just WhatsApp Natalie on 069 652 9696 and she'll send it to you. Alternatively, you can go back to the website and just fill in send me more information on becoming a licensee. That means you will receive an automated response and it'll arrive in your inbox. So that's an important one. Now, for those of you that are looking at starting your own business and or have aspirations of developing your consultancy into a bigger and more effective organization, it's important that you ask your attorney, your accountant, somebody that you know, to read this document as well. My suggestion is always print it, grab a highlighter, go through it, draw up a list of questions, and then afterwards what we can do is we can actually have a one-on-one session and we'll answer those questions to the best of our ability. Now, the organization Intra has been around for the past 14 years. Prior to that, it was Intra Train, which was a training company which I owned and ran. And then from there, we decided rather, instead of doing the training, we will assist people like yourselves that you do the training. We're members of SIOSH, APID, and IOSH. And this is our basic team. We have a number of people that freelance with us, and these people have made a huge contribution to us and certainly to the licensees. Those wonderful people over there are licensees, and our reach stretches from Dubai in the Middle East right down to Durbanville, and we operate in about 100 countries. So we operate with about 100 licensees in about 8 countries in Africa. So now, here's an interesting fact. If you go online, you'll see that South Africa has about 17 million employees. Do you know that those employees all need health and safety training in some other way, manner, or means? We've got two pieces of legislation. That's the Health and Safety Act and also the Mines Health and Safety Act. I think the Mines Health and Safety Act covers about 500,000 people. That means 16.5 million people need training. And I say this to people all the time. We will never, ever, ever, ever in all our years get through all of these people. So opportunity is, huge for those people that are going to be involved in the training industry itself. And these sessions will come up, sessions as in information sessions or toolbox talks or training sessions will come up all the time because there's repeat, people come and go all the time. Okay, so What we did is that we looked at what the need was in the market, and certainly based on our experience, and we put together a business model. And the business model is established in terms of the Consumer Protection Act. In the Consumer Protection Act, they talk about franchises, and this is very much like a franchise, but it's not. It's a license. And in the same Consumer Protection Act, you'll see that they talk about licensing. So the business model that we'll be talking about today comprises of these different elements. There's the business options, business onboarding and orientation, and product onboarding and orientation. And then a very select online marketing setup. So helping you set up your business. Once you become a licensee, we will provide you with a lot of training material. We've got legal compliance training material. We have an e-learning platform. We've got the old SACWA unit standards that are still around for another month and a bit, more like 2 months. Then we have an YouTube, shall we call it an educational channel. We run workshops on ISO. We run workshops on AI. And for those of you that are already into AI, you'll understand how powerful that's going to be in the health and safety world. And as a licensee, you can attend that. Then, very importantly, because we see this transition from CETA to QCTO, and in that world, we know that in the QCTO world that we're going to get or be able to get accreditation. Penny will talk to you a little bit about that just now. And there's more training material. We have a accreditation workshop and accreditation, we call it the Accredi-Kit, all the forms and documents that's required. And then, of course, wonderful networking opportunities where you can collaborate with other people. And we have a mechanism where you can start at the bottom and work your way up in this sort of organization. Now, you'll notice that I've overlaid the word prime over QCTO aligned training material and Accredi-Kit and the DIY workshops. The reason for that is exclusive to the Prime license. I'll talk about the Prime license in a short while. Okay, so here's the question. Who's allowed to run health and safety training courses in South Africa? And that's a very important question because we often hear people saying all health and safety training must be provided by accredited training service providers. That's not true. Let me say that again. It's not true. Not all. Because the Act says, and I've extracted from the Act, the employer shall provide. Is the employer accredited? No, probably not. So who shall run it? The employer. You say, but the employer's too busy. True. So the employer can use a contractor. And that's where you fall into the picture. Okay, Section 8 is a vital section in terms of the Act, because there it talks about the, shall we call it, the formula for training. It says that the employer must establish the hazards, which makes sense, and then must establish the precautionary measures. That makes sense. We can call them safe work procedures, operating procedures. Then it says that the employer must provide information, instruction, and training. So who must present the training? The employer. But you come along as a contractor or a mandatory, and you run those programs for and on behalf of the employer, taking some of the legal responsibility as well, by the way. And then the fourth point over there is the employer shall provide supervision. Who must be trained? So training all along the way. Opportunity if you're going to become a training provider. Then, as you probably know, Section 13 goes down a bit further, and it talks about the employer shall cause every employee, how many employees are there? Well, we said something like 17 million. The employer shall cause every employee to be made conversant. Interesting word that, not competent, conversant. Let me say that again, not competent, conversant. And what is that person be conversant in? The hazards that the employer identified and established, as well as the precautionary measures to be taken. Now, let me be bold enough to say that most health and safety training courses that I ran in the past, I worked for NOSA for 5 years, didn't comply with this. Yeah, it did not comply with this because the training was not risk specific according to Section 8, if Section 8 was around when I was at NOSA. Subsequently to that, we know that the legislation has changed from the old Factories Act to the MOS Act and the MOS Act to the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So please note, opportunity here, and you would then be the contractor or the mandatory who will do this for and on behalf of the employer. Now, question is, what kind of hazards will we encounter in the workplace? Well, it's up to the employer to do a risk assessment or a HIRA, and they may find many of these elements in their workplace, and then the information, instruction, and training needs to take place. If you look at the top there, it says hazard-based legal compliance, IIT. That IIT is information, instructions, and training. Those are three different things. They're not the same thing. They're different. For instance, if you do a toolbox talk, that's information. It's a legal requirement, and we can see it in the legislation. Toolbox talk on what? Maybe one of these topics. And or instruction, which is more practical, and then training, which we will understand as something that you can measure at the end or assess. Okay, now what if we don't do it? Well, we can see in the Act, it talks in Section 38 of the offences and penalties, that any person, and that's you, and me, and the employer, and the supervisor, and the employee, any person who is guilty of an offence and is convicted in terms of this Act could go to jail. There's currently, in terms of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, a 50,000 rand fine. And if the amendment bill comes through, it'll be up to about 5 million rand. That's quite hectic. So if you're looking at this from a commercial point of view and wanting to promote your services to your clients, this is a great incentive. This is your get out of jail free card. This is so important if that can be proven. All right. Then I said to you that what we did is we put these licenses together. And I said to you that you can upgrade. So the license programming starts like Starter Basic, then a program called the Q Pack, the Prime Plus, and the Platinum. Each one is an extension of the next one, or the previous one, at least. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Now, do you remember that document I spoke about, the prospectus? For the detail of each one of those licenses, please go to your prospectus and go through it with a highlighter and ask your attorney or your accountant to work with you on that. So once you understand which license you could plug into, you can literally start with Prime. You don't have to start with Starter and Basic. You can start with Prime, especially for those of you that want QCTO accreditation. Okay, so from there, what kind of training can we do? Well, there's 2 or 3 different types of training. The first one is legal compliance training. So we said, identify the dangers, hazards, and risks, and train the people. That's called legal compliance. Does it have to be credit bearing? No. Does it have to have a unit standard? No. What must it be? Training. And I can defend this by saying this, that in the legislation, or in the concept of the legislation, there's a principle called the reasonable man. And the reasonable man or person, what would they do? Well, if you have, for instance, asbestos in your workplace, the asbestos abatement regulation talks of training over 20 times in that regulation. You do it. Is there a unit standard? No. Has there ever been a unit standard? No. Will there ever be a unit standard? No. We're hoping for the QCTO to write a curriculum on asbestos. Then I want to just pop down to number 11, ergonomics. Exactly the same thing. 24 times it's mentioned, training in the ergonomics regulation. 24 times. Is there an opportunity for you? Absolutely. Now, here's an interesting one. Is there a unit standard? Yeah. Only for the risk assessor, not for the general employee, supervisor, charge hand, foreman, manager. Never written. In any case, I'm not going to get into that at the moment, but it's not there. And is there a QCTO curriculum? Nope, not yet. They said they're going to bring one out, and we're waiting. That's 3 years later. We're waiting. But do you know what is interesting is that I mentioned that the risk assessor, there was a unit standard, and I say was a unit standard because it's expired. It's not enforced anymore. So this is training that you can do to ensure that your client is complying, legal compliance training. And you can issue a certificate of attendance or participation, but be careful not to issue a certificate of competency. There's a whole story around that. Okay, what else? Well, there are 2 programs over there. You'll see 13, basic fall protection. Now, this is not construction regulations, working at heights, fall arrest training. This is basic fall protection. So it's not governed by legislation. In any case, we'll talk about the working at heights curriculum. And then there's first aid. And this is not General Safety Regulation 3 first aid. Okay, so just looking at that list there, I'd like to suggest that you just quickly take a photograph of that list And ask yourself the question, how many of those programs do you think your client or your employer would want hosted or presented at their organization? I assure you can see 2 or 3 or 4 of them. Most of you would have HAZREP number 19, induction number 22, investigation 23, stacking and storage 25, supervisory management training 26, and so forth and so forth. All right. Remember the prospectus? Once you got the prospectus, you'll be able to go through it, tick it off, and say, those are the ones that we can start with. Or if you find yourself in a situation where you don't know anything about ergonomics, for instance, we also have an e-learning program with 18 programs on it. And we would strongly suggest that you attend the e-learning program. It's part of the license. You attend the e-learning program so that you have a general understanding of what ergonomics is all about. Now, you'll never become an expert or a specialist in these subjects without an academic qualification. But as a generalist, somebody who can talk about it, wow, it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. So you can scale your own mind and your understanding of occupational health and safety and occupational hygiene and occupational medicine and things of that nature. Okay, now, you've probably been following the fact that there was the CETAs and they had all kinds of powers. One of the things that the CETAs could do is that they could accredit organizations like yourself. Now, that's stopped. The Department of Higher Education and Training has said no more. CETAs do not do any accreditation at all. But the CETAs work under SAQA, which is the South African Qualification Authority, and they write or wrote unit standards. And there was something like 11,000 unit standards, which the Department of Higher Education and Training canceled. All of them gone. And we all stood up and go, you can't do that. What are we going to do in the meantime? So what they did is the Higher Education Department then said, fine, some of these unit standards will come back. So we've still got about 40. And 40 of the unit standards can be used if you are accredited for that unit standard. If you're not accredited, don't worry. They being QCTO, they will write and develop QCTO curriculum. But all the licensees, our prime license, basic and prime licensees, will receive 40 programs here as well. So it was 27 legal compliance programs, another 40 odd thereabouts, training programs that were unit standard aligned, and then more. So keep your eye or ear to the ground. Note that at the end of June, there will be no more unit standards according to a government gazette that we're sitting with, where they said, that's it, finished and clear, we're moving on to the next level. Okay, now, so the question does come up, when must accredited training be run? When must health and safety training be accredited? I always tell the story of I met this wonderful lady, and she said, all health and safety training, all of it, everything, must be accredited. And I said to her, show me where. Where does it say that in the law? It doesn't. And I can assure you, I've scratched. However, I'll show you 1 or 2 places that is important. And I'm sure you also understand that the terminology is a little confusing. If I had to say, please define the difference between accreditation and agreed upon training. And have you seen this in the Act, Section 18, that your training must be agreed upon by the health and safety representatives and committee? That's interesting. And what's the difference between accredited and aligned? And accredited and approved? And accredited and certified? These are words that you're going to come across all the time. What is this thing called competent or competency? And where do we find that? And why? And by the way, why is it in some regulations and not in others? And what's the difference between accredited and compliant, accredited and registered, accredited and verified, accredited and licensed? And that's what we do. We license people in terms of the Consumer Protection Act to use our training material. So there's a journey ahead. And if you feel a little bit overwhelmed with this, don't worry. We will take you down the road. We'll hold your hand to the best of our ability. We have info sessions, we have webinars, we have lots and lots of discussions and documents that we're going to strongly, strongly suggest that you get your head around. Okay, but accreditation is vital for a variety of reasons, one of which is marketing. Get your accreditation, and it just opens the door from a marketing point of view. Okay, now, when must this training be accredited? So the lady said to me, it must be accredited. No, unless you can show it to me in writing. And The only way that we can see whether it must be accredited is, does the regulation, not the act, does the regulation talk of a competent person? So while I take a sip of water, please read that screen. It says a competent person means a person who has, in respect of the work or task to be performed, the required knowledge, training, experience, and where applicable qualifications. Now, that's an interesting thing. It's in a number of the regulations, and you'll pick it up. I've got a list of all those regulations, and if you want, you go to the prospectus and have a look at the prospectus, and it actually tells you exactly which regulations requires competency. Remember, it said there were appropriate qualifications. They talk about this training would be registered in terms of the NQF Act. That's the National Qualification Framework Act. But I mentioned to you that the example of there's no unit standard for asbestos abatement or no unit standard for ergonomics. So it's not registered. Interesting. So you have to get your head around it and understand these things, because there comes a time when you might have to explain it to other people. Then, right at the end, underneath the definition of competency, and it says, and that person must be familiar with the Act and the applicable regulations made under the Act. There's almost 3 programs here. There's let's take ergonomics as an example. There's the run the workshop on ergonomics, and we've got all the training material, PowerPoints, learner guide, facilitator guide. We've got all of that ready to roll. Secondly, we say that attend the e-learning program. We have one on ergonomics. And then run a workshop on the Act and the relevant sections of the Act, and run a workshop on the relevant regulations. And this very week, I did one on the asbestos abatement regulation, and we focused on just the legislation. What does the law say? Okay, so having said that, it's an interesting little journey, and we'll talk it through. Now, here's an interesting thing. Right now, we have the draft construction regulations that are doing the rounds. In fact, I'm not too sure when the deadline is for commentary. But please notice that the draft construction regulations definition takes any reference from, in terms of the NQF Act, out. It's almost as if the Department of Employment and Labor do not see that as important anymore. Now, I don't think that's the case, but interesting, isn't it? They don't make mention of NQF Act in the draft construction regulations definition. Alrighty, moving on. Okay, I'm going to ask Penny to come across, and she's going to introduce herself. And she has become our DIY QCTO workshop queen. And she'll talk a little bit about the training material and so forth. So, Penny, over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and lovely to have you guys with us. I think we have one of our oldest licensees with us today. That's Jerome. We have intra-unique numbers, and he is number 0002. And we have one of our newest licensees with us. I think we've got Bernie and Yaku here, and our very newest is Dion and Lizette. Welcome, Dion and Lizette. You are number 0305. So you can see how the business has been growing over the years, and we are so grateful to always be finding new things to make life easier for the training providers that we serve in health and safety. So the QCTO program is something that we started in January of 2022 to empower our licensees to be able to give them tremendous cost savings going forward as the QCTO plays catch up with publishing the necessary skills programs and part and full qualifications for OHS. And it's proved extremely successful. Our licensees are getting through their accreditation processes successfully. And with the new OHS skills programs that we've just brought out and developed this year, we are delighted to share with you that those are also going through the site visit audits very successfully. So all good news for you in terms of giving you an opportunity for like a plug and play, if you like. So training material that really is well aligned and gives you the quality that you need, plus amazing visuals, I might add as well. So part of the program is a fully equipped Accredited Google Drive, which gives you all the templates and checklists and QMS and business plan, all the documents, etc., that you need to fill out and to be aware of as you prepare for your QCTO accreditation. We also have a workshop. The next one's coming up tomorrow, and I think the next one in June is the 11th of June. So we run these workshops monthly, and these are 2-hour workshops where we just give you all the necessary signposts, timelines, and just give you more of a breakdown as to what is going to be expected from you for your accreditation, and just make it less daunting so that you can see that this is totally doable. And just remember, it is a repetitive process. So once you've nailed it and you've got it down pat, you're going to be able to repeat this process again and again. Your accreditation costs currently with the QCTO is nil. So I say currently because they have tried to implement costs previously, and then, there was enough of a large lobby against that. So fortunately, it didn't go through because it would have made it very expensive. So at the moment, it's still free. So please take advantage of this window. We don't know how long that might last. And we also don't know to what extent there's going to be other significant pressures after June. We just don't know. So we really are encouraging all of our licensees, get your applications in now. You can apply for up to 5 skills programs at any one time, and up to 4 part and full qualifications. We tend to focus and invest in the area of the short course industry. So we are looking at the less than 8 credit programs, and as they become available and published, we have an amazing development team that is putting these together for you. So this is just an example of what you will get with each of your training materials. We actually do download the curriculum documents and the explanatory document, we call it, for you. I think we've got something like 15 or 16 different elements as part of the training, QCTO training programs that we deliver to you. So we really do an extensive delivery. The first aid skills programs have been out for quite some time, and I think Jerome is with us today. He was one of the first to get this accreditation in place with the QCTO. The 3 skills programs have also just gone through a thorough review and refresh this year. So, and plus we've added visuals to these 3 programs as well. So that is all in place, and they have been going through the QCTO audits very successfully, and through the later training classes, etc., going forward very successfully. We do also just assist in terms of the workshop and the preparation, how exactly you're going to handle your site visit. We can even do a full rehearsal with you. With 1 or 2 of our licensees are also QCTO verifiers, so they really take you through all the dotted I's and crossed T's and make sure that you don't have any surprises. But really, we're getting tremendous compliments and hats off to our licensees for the quality that they present in terms of themselves and their expertise, but also the quality of their venues and the way that they create a professional environment for learning. So this is a very important issue for the QCTO. So the top 5 skills programs that we really encourage all of our licensees to get under their belt as soon as possible, all the 2 credit OHS skills programs that just came out in November of last year. And they cover like the low-hanging fruit, the courses that you're very familiar with, like HIRA, HAZREP. They do have some slightly different names: legal liability, evacuation marshal, incident investigation. They do tend to be a little bit of a bloated version of what you might have been used to in the past. But remember, this is all part and parcel of understanding the QCTO policies and procedures and mission, etc., and seeing it from their point of view. And really, the information that Ken and the team have put together here covers you in all aspects, and in particular, makes sure that you are legally correct. So they put in a lot of optional extras, etc., that keep you absolutely locked in to the law. So very, very important. If you had to purchase 8 QCTO training materials just on their own, we're charging 4,999, including that per training material individually. So you can quickly see how your costs would escalate. And this is where the license program really, really adds such massive value, so that you get like this full delivery and plus all the new QCTO training materials and other training materials that we are developing from time to time. And with the advent of AI, of course, our delivery is getting faster and faster. And we're able to increase your library, if you like, of training material resource all the time. And you don't pay extra as you go along with the license program, especially the Prime license. And this adds huge value. But you can see the detail of what we deliver, including your Forms 3 and Forms 4, which are your implementation plan and your learning matrix, partially filled out for you. So we really do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. For the Working at Heights, we are still waiting for the QCTO to come out with their versions, etc. There has been quite a tussle in the background for the last few years with the Institute of Working at Heights and QCTO. And this has resulted in the Institute of Working at Heights eventually instituting their own certification processes. And for those of you that do need Working at Heights, this is where we are encouraging our licensees to go. You deal with Institute of Working at Heights direct, and their interim process has now become a permanent process. It's working extremely well, and you will be required to have the necessary skills and knowledge in Working at Heights. There's quite a fastidious certification process, including a registration with the ASDSA. And you will need to also be a facilitator and assessor as you are needed to be for the QCTO as well. But this is totally doable. Please contact Lizanne at the email address that you see there and deal with them directly. They're very, very, very professional, and our licensees are getting this certification behind them. And of course, extremely, extremely important, as this is one of the major areas for health and safety. So I think Ken is going to take over here and just chat about the different license options. So with that, I'm just going to hand over to Ken. I'm the back office support today, but I'm going to come back for the questions at the end. Thank you.
Penny, thank you so much. So what we're talking about is we're talking about the system that starts with starter and goes from starter to basic, from basic to prime, from prime to a license called platinum. Now, they're not all relevant to you. Platinum, for instance, is only for corporates and multi-country, multi-branch people. So the primary one, the main one, is the prime license. Okay, but platinum starts at 105,500 Rand. And there is an annual license fee that is charged as a percentage of the 105,500. The term is 5 years. And for that 5-year period, as Penny mentioned, you'll be receiving everything that we produce. And you'll receive it. Your team can come through the workshops. They can sit in on them and so forth. We'll provide you with the support. Then Prime, which is the main one that we're talking about, is 49,500. These prices exclude that. And the monthly license fee is 1,500 Rand. So when we costed this entire thing out, you get about 250,000 rands worth of material. And what you're going to experience is that it's going to be, here is the material, use what you can, almost like use it, don't use it. But imagine if you had to write all that training, 27 legal compliance courses, 40 unit standards, 8 QCTO skills programs. I mean, just to learn how the QCTO system works, it would take you a month. And I'm not joking. I actually wrote a book on that called the Q Book on the QCTO. It's questions and answers relating to the QCTO. To write that book alone, to research it and write it, was at least another week and a half. So we're saying to you, you're going to benefit hugely because you can get up and running quickly. And that's where the fast tracking comes in. And you don't have to go and do all that research yourself. We'll feed you the information. We want to be as transparent as possible and say this, we don't know everything. But you can hear from Penny's expertise. She's very, very good. She's a school teacher by training and profession and a businesswoman. She's actually been in business longer than I have. So she has a really good understanding of these things and she's well connected. She served on a QCTO HWC work group while they were working on the curriculum for one of the programs or a couple of the programs. And she's well connected with the HWC and the QCTO. So you don't have to do that. You can if you want to, but your job would then get on with the marketing and get on with the operational stuff, running the courses. Then the basic program you'll see is 29,500. License fee is the same. But the difference is that you won't get the QCTO support on that license. Okay, but go back to your prospectus and have a look there, and you see what you're going to receive as part of Prime and Basic. Then there is the starter. Now, the starter is 15,500, and the license fee is considerably less. It's 500 Rand. To get you up and running, because there are many people out there that just don't have the resources to go to the 49,500. Many do, and it's great because you get everything all at once, but you can start at the bottom. Now, there's also the training material, those 27 training programs. However, Penny just mentioned something. She said that the QCTO training material is 49,000, my apologies, 4,999 and 99 cents, something like that. And that means that you get the rights to reproduce. You can print as many of the learner workbooks as you want to, the rights to customize, the rights to use this training material as and where you feel necessary, but you don't get the right to reproduce the facilitator material, and you don't get the rights to resell it. Okay, so that's what you're going to get, and that prospectus is going to cover all of that for you and then some. So if you have any questions, we can definitely answer the questions. But that's not all, folks. There's more. If you're a Prime or a basic license, you'll also receive a personalized service. We call it the Online Marketing Presence Setup from Natalie. Many of you have already been in contact with Natalie. She's got a degree from UCT in media. She's worked for a number of large advertising agencies in the digital marketing arena, and she now spends time with our licensees, helping them get their act together. And these things change all the time. I'm sure you're familiar with it. More importantly now, we've also got AI. Now, she doesn't do the AI stuff. That's a workshop that we run on a monthly basis, and you can attend that workshop. And it is incredibly informative and unbelievably useful. So these are things that you as a licensee would receive. You'll also get access to this book. I just want to hold it up here. I'm not too sure if you can see it. This is the most phenomenal word. I can't focus on it. It's the most phenomenal book I've come across in the AI world for health and safety people. It's an AI prompt handbook, where she's written literally dozens upon dozens upon dozens of very, very direct, relevant prompts. You don't have to write them. You just got them. And that comes as part of the program as well. So you'll get the Q book and you'll get the AI prompt book and things of that nature. She's currently working on one for an international market. So this book over here is specifically for the South African health and safety market. Then we mentioned onboarding and orientation and mentoring. We've got a YouTube channel and there's about 200 videos there, and you can go back and you can watch things specifically. You'll see that we've got an operations manual, and that ops manual goes hand in hand with the orientation. The onboarding is about half an hour. It's not long. The orientation is about 4 hours once a month. Absolutely recommended that you attend it. I've been in the health and safety game, so we'll teach you about or talk to you about sales and marketing and advertising and things of that nature. And then, of course, we will also expose you to all the new material that's coming out. Okay, enough on that. I mentioned that we have the opportunity of networking and collaborating with people, and that is something which I think is incredibly valuable, given the fact that Jerome is in Angola. And Jerome, I would imagine if there's somebody in South Africa who's got a client in Angola, that you can collaborate with them and they with you. And that's part of the rationale. And that happens behind the scenes. We don't get involved in it. We just make the connection. So I've got lots of examples there. So maybe at this stage you're saying, well, wow, this actually does impress me. I like it. I like the idea. So we'll do a couple of things for you as part of the presentation. If you want to see any of the training material, we don't send samples. And the reason I'm doing that is that I hate to insult other people's work, but there's some real lightweight training material out there, really, really lightweight. So we say, look at it. we'll set up a Zoom session and we'll go through it page for page, page by page, slide by slide, so that you can satisfy yourself that the material is really quality. Unlike people currently selling training material online, you can get 10 programs for 1,500 Rand. I go, impossible to make money that way. And then I realized what's happening is that they on-selling. They buy it and they on-sell it, on-sell it, on-sell it, on-sell it, which borders on fraud and borders on plagiarism. So enough of that. I'm not going to talk about that. Certainly, if you've got a management team that you'd like to sit with us, we'll give you at least 30 minutes. We'll do a Zoom call. We'll set it up and talk you through whatever it is on your mind. So I said in the beginning, if you have any questions, please hold them till the end. Well, maybe you don't have enough time to deal with it now, but we'll gladly set up a meeting. And if you go onto that link over there, where it says scheduler.zoom, maybe you just want to take a photograph of that, or ask Natalie for the link, and then we can set up a meeting and we'll talk it through with you. The other day, I sat and chatted to the management team of a large agricultural company, just making them familiar with, or giving them an opportunity to see what's available. Okay, now, as we wrap up, one of the questions is, so where to from here? Where to from here? And I created this little document called, and I said it's a little document, it's only 3 pages, the licensee roadmap. Next step, what do you do next? And if you want a copy of that, just let Natalie know. You've got her number now. She'll send it to you. What you can also do is just pop your request into the chat box, and I can send it to you. I WhatsApp. I don't email anymore. Too many clicks with emailing, but WhatsApp is wonderful. And this little booklet, or this section of the book, it's more like a pamphlet, will just explain where to from here. Okay. Then, of course, if you feel, wow, this is something that I'd like to take to the management team, I need a written quote. Gladly, we'll submit a written quote from our accounting system so you have it in writing. So you've got the prospectus with the prices, and then the actual quotation, which you can hold us to. With that in mind, you literally are in a situation where you can save yourself an enormous amount of time and money and effort. Gosh, if I had this when I started my training business, I would have been a lot further down the line than I was after, well, I ran that for 7 years. But now you can get up and running as quickly as within a week or 2, you can be running training programs. So I'm going to stop the presentation. I'm going to say to you, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for participating. I'm going to open the microphone so that everybody, all and sundry, can ask questions. I see we've still got a little bit of time here. We've got about 10, 15 minutes on this recording. So let's go down to the chat box. There's a question in the chat box. Leanne says, good afternoon. Penny says, Natalie, our CRM has flu. Yes, she does. Okay, Jackie, I've got your details. Thank you very much. May you share the document with us? Of course, yes. Yolan, welcome. Nice to have you with us. I don't see any questions there. Oh, there's a question from Jackie. With regards to working at height, I come from a telecoms background, and the requirement was only to use Gravity Gear as the preferred training provider. And some clients no longer accept, yeah,